In the previous videos, we've looked at creating a pivot table and a matching pivot chart. And for this one, I would like to show you some of the filtering options, which I think are quite interesting. What I've done is I've renamed this sheet sales by product, and you can see it gives me the total for each product at the top of each column. I'm going to go back to the original data, which was my list of cake sales, which we set up using this option called Format as Table. And I'm going to go and create a new pivot table and pivot chart this time. So I'm going to go to Insert, and over on the middle here somewhere, there should be a pivot chart option. And I'm going to go Pivot Chart and Pivot Table. Again, it's picking up the table and range called cake sales because that's what we called the Format as Table. And again, I want it as a new worksheet, so I can start with a completely clean slate. This is where my pivot table is going to form, and this is where my chart is going to build. And this time I'm going to look at sales, let's say by product. But instead of counting how many of each product I've sold, I want to know the total cost. Now, if I pop the total cost on the values area, because it's a value, it's going to default to adding it up. So it's come up with sum of total cost. And you can see that's a total sales for carrot cake there, total for cheesecake, and so on. And then I have my matching chart. Now, what I would like to do is I want to show you different ways of filtering data. Let's say I pop the client in this filters area here. Can you see at the moment the chart, the client is set to all, so I'm seeing that for every client. But if I choose the little drop down arrow, I can say, oh, I only want to see this particular client, and the figures will change. Oh, I want to see cakes, and the figures will change. And if you want to, you can choose an option called select multiple items. So you can tick, select and deselect several clients at once potentially and see their items added up. I'm just going to set that back to all for a moment. Because the other way that you can filter, which is, I think, maybe easier if you're setting this up for other people, because that's kind of discreet, that little filter in the corner. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Pivot Table Analyze tab, and there should be an option called Insert Slicer. And if I click onto Insert Slicer, you can choose by which filter you want to use. Let's say I'm going to filter by client, and it leaves me this little box here, which is effectively doing the same thing. It's the little drop down arrow in the corner, but I just think it's very much more obvious for other people to use. So as they click onto each name, it changes the chart automatically. The only thing you need to make sure they do when they finish doing their filtering is there's a little filter icon here which clears the filters, otherwise they might accidentally leave a filter on. And just like when we were looking at the formatting options, you can format your slicer just like you could format your pivot table. So I could actually choose a similar design for all three and get into the design tab for the correct one, so that you get a kind of nice little dashboard with your figures and your slicer and your chart all looking quite similar.